Oh my God, I found it. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's real. I'm like, this is not good.
Is that too long for 1100?
Yeah, I can see what they're doing.
This morning I felt put it out. But I'm just drinking like
I saw him leave Lhasa, so.
oh my God, that was just like, oh God. I make it leave my house with my daughter. I'm out. See you in a week when you're she was like, that was convenient.
Caring for the dead. Tomorrow, along with the Naga food. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, good yogas today.
Yeah.
You did a lot of yoga.
Microphone. Yeah, we did.
Your microphone. Symbolic. What?
That lady I'm sure she's so nice. She helped create this place. Oh, really? Oh. Okay. So you have all the words of all the different things?
This is just monumental.
It's in English. Are you going to do Chalisa now?
The man has no poker face.
Somebody just said, we were having a conversation, and somebody said, but so-and-so is in their late 60s. And then I found myself saying, but that's so young! I never thought I'd say that. Columbus, he wrote an aging book, right? He wrote a bunch of aging books. He had a stroke in the middle of writing an aging book. Yeah, Rama. He did.
Still here.
Actually, two things actually happened. He had stopped taking his blood pressure medicine.
He did.
He was going to switch over to Chinese medicine, but he hadn't started. He hadn't started.
He never do it like that. He
Well,
started with the Chinese at the same time.
And he also took acid. He wasn't sure he was even having a stroke.
Oh.
Everyone in my family had male had heart attacks in their 60s. And I said, I probably will, and I was like this, and my guru said, oh, no, not you. He said, that's your lineage. He said that. They're worried. He says, but you? He says, now you found the Dharma. You're much too jolly. And at the time, I was only 30-something, but I was not old jolly. I was like, wasted my 30s, 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Enjoying my 70s. Soon 80s. Okay, please, I'm sorry. I'm just so happy that you're here, that's for real. You can never leave. Don't leave. Nay! I'm going to use that like, well, you, nay! You can't leave, right? We'll build a Krishna got palace over there, and the mineral palace over there, and the mall, and you know, just stay with you. I'm just kidding. We don't have it. It's funny to do that. Okay. So are you going to do something from the Chalisa? Yeah. Oh, please. What does Chalisa mean?
40.
What?
40 verses.
A hymn. Chalisa means 40. Chalisa. The title of my op-ed. Well, that means getting rid of all the root of all bad luck. I'm sorry. Yeah, getting rid of the mula, the amangala. Right? That's wonderful. Okay, let's go.
Guru Charan Saudaraja Juman Mukur Siddhar Varano Raghu Bharadama Jasa Jodhaya Gopalachar Buddhi Tanu Janike Sunaram Bhanakuam Bala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi Haro Kale Subhaka Syaram Chandra Padaje Sharanam Chayanuma Jnana Gunasam Ekati Sati Malokajam Namamurta Turtavadam Anjani Putavani Sitanam Mahavira Kumati Nivara Sumati Kesan Kanchanavara Viraja Sudesta Nana Kundala Kunchita Kesan Akubajura Rudaja Viraja Kande Mujajani Rusa Shankara Suvana Keshari Manda Eja Pratapa Mahajagamanda Vidyanuguni Ati Chatur Rama Kaja Kariveko Ato Prabhu Charitra Suniveko Asya Rama Lakana Sita Nakasya Sukshma Rupa Rasya Ndikava Vikata Rupa Jaya Imarupadari Asura Samha Ramachandra Ke Kaja Sante, Kapikolindakai Sakekanta, Mopakar Sudevankina, Rama Milaya Rajapadadina, Maro Mantra Viveshanamam, Ankeshwaravaya Samajagajana, Sahasra Jana Param, Yothari Mandura Palajan, Prabhu Murika Mukhamai, Chaladilam Nigaya Chalachanai, Durgamakada Jagat Kejet, Subramanu Gautamare Pete, Namaduare Tumarakavai, Uttanagya Vinapesai, Sarvasukalaye Tumari Sharan, Maya Chakrakam Bodhai, Abunate Samaro Ape, Dino Lokaham Kirtankam, Uttapasashini Katanahiyale, Mahavira Tamanam Sumave, Asero Yavare Savapir, Javatantarantaranam Mattabir, Sankatatena Namachurare, Manakama Vachamadhana Drolave, Vaparanam Trapasune Raja, Tinake Kaja Sakala Tunasaja, Oramanorata Jokoyalave, Sole Amita Dhyana Palatava, Ayoyo Padata Batumam, Padasena Jagata Vijaya, Satu Santa Ketu Marakavari, Surani Kangaramudulavi, Ashtu Siddhino Vidikegata, Vasavarati Janaki Mata, Ramarasayam Tumare Pasa, Sadara Rupati Kedasi, Mare Bhajinama Gopali, Janma Janma Kevu Kudusara, Indrakaya Raghudara Purajai, Jaham Janma Hare Bhaktai, Orke Mata Chittanadai, Tanumata Se Savasukakrai, Sankattakate Nute Sabapira, Josumere Hanumata Paladeva, Jai 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 Hanuman Gosai, Kripakaro Gurudeva Kinai, Josatabhaya Pakakara Guru, Bandi Mahasuto, Joya Kare Hanuman Chalisa, Joya Siddhi Saki Gaurisa, Tulasidas Sada Harichera, Ide Madhava Mahadeva, Bharatanaya Sankataharana, Mangalamurti Rupsalam, Rama Lakshmana Sita Saritam, Vedara Sarasura Bhuta, Hanuman Sankatam Mokshan Kripamadhan Bhajan Gavali Hanuman Sankatam Mokshan Kripamadhan Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Jai Shri Ram Jai Hanuman Karuna Sagar Kripamadhan Jai Shri Ram Jai Hanuman Karuna Sagar Kripamadhan Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram 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 Sitaram Jai Sitaram Sitaram Jai Sitaram Sitaram Jai Sitaram Sitaram Jai Sitaram Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Bhajan Gavali Hanuman Sankatam Mokshan Kripamadhan Jai Bhajan Gavali Hanuman Sankatam Mokshan Kripamadhan Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram
You had a good rest. You had a great rest. Very energized today.
I wasn't until I came here and saw you.
What's that?
I wasn't until I came here and saw you.
Oh no! Oh, that's so too bad. I don't believe it. So, do you want to hear about Vimalakirti?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, we're going to talk about Vimalakirti. Vimalakirti means spotless fame. And he was a citizen of this great city of Vaishali, which means expansive, magnificent, Vaishali. And they say when the Vaishali citizens would go out for chariot rides, it was like the gods going, like beautiful, exquisite, amazing chariots. It was an incredibly wealthy city. It is near where Patna is presently, which for a long time Pataliputra was the capital of the Maurya dynasty and of some other subsequent dynasties. So it's the main capital of India in different eras in the classical period. And it's still a big city, Patna, the capital of Bihar province. And Bihar, by the way, province means, if you know India, it comes from the word Vihara, which means a monastery. There were so many monasteries in the province, they called it Bihar. And anyway, Buddha went there with his hundreds of saintly arhats, or sort of saints, who had attained some type of nirvana, personal nirvana, let's say. and the bodhisattvas who were seeking universal nirvana, Buddhahood, for the sake of all beings. And there was a chariot race between the mayor of the town and Amrapali, who was a famous courtesan, and sort of like a, not anything lowbrow, kind of like a Hollywood star or something of the time. And she had a better chariot, right?
Mayflower Mountain.
That's right. Well, I wasn't really mad necessarily, although Indians were, whatever they were. But anyway, she had better chariots, and she beat them to the Buddha as he was walking with his troop of people, a large troop of people. And he would always accept the first person who invited him when he would go to a city or a village. If someone would invite him to be in their grove, you know, he didn't go into except in the rainy season, he wouldn't go under a roof. But they would make sort of little huts in groves. And she had a big estate outside the city in a big grove. Amrapalivana, a favorite place, which he was fond of staying in. And anyway, she beat them, the mayor. And so when he said yes, when he accepted an invitation, he never said anything. He just would go. He wouldn't say no, that's all. So then that meant he accepted. So the mayor was really mad. So he and all the monks were all camped out in the grove there, and Amrapali's, all her attendants, and with her great wealth, she was feeding them at the pre-noon meal. They only ate one meal a day. And then the elder people in Vaishali were boycotting. They weren't coming to receive teaching because they were fuming that he didn't go stay in the special shala, pavilion that he had for the great gurus in the middle of the city. And but the young people came out. 500 young Vaishali yuppies came, and they were carrying jeweled parasols against the sunshine, which was the custom of the very wealthy Indian people at that time. And when they came to the Buddha, they were so overwhelmed by his splendor, sitting on his teaching throne in the midst of the assembled bodhisattvas and Buddhas. And the gods are also there, not necessarily visible to the other people. And even the Brahmas of other universes would come there. The Brahma god, who was the bigger god at that time. There was not much talk of Vishnu or Shiva in that era, in Buddha's time. But Brahma was the top god. And he was, a bunch of Brahma and other Brahmas from other humanoid worlds were there also, because Buddha was going to teach them. So then they laid down all these parasols in a heap in front of the Buddha as an offering. And so the first thing he did, and I was so baffled, I was commissioned to translate this book, right? The Tibetans don't really read it that much. It's the Indian people, and it's very popular in East Asia. And we know it existed by 150 of the Common Era because the first translation into Chinese was that time. So around the time of Bhagavata. Yeah, but I won't launch into history yet. This is it. But I'm just telling the Vimalakirti story. So then the Buddha made a piece of performance art with his supernormal powers. I never say supernatural, because they're natural, but supernormal. And with that, he created a giant dome that covered the entire host of all his followers, plus the 500 yuppies in the middle. And I couldn't figure out what this dome was when I was translating, until I realized that in the reflected surfaces inside the dome, everyone could see all kinds of other universes and everything about this planet and this universe, and all the rivers and mountains and people and cities and galaxies and everything. And I realized it was like a planetarium. He made like a planetarium. And then he did a show in the planetarium of the interconnectedness of all nature. And then they were all like gaga about it. And then the leader of the 500 yuppies, these were very hip yuppies. And the leader of them, he sang a hymn, a poetic hymn of praise for the Buddha. He was so pleased with that. And he was saying, they heard sounds it was like a full multimedia show, because the Buddhas in other worlds were also teaching, and he was hearing it in gurus and everything, not just Buddhas, everybody. And he says, and so his poem is, this is my translation, but the Sanskrit is also beautiful. I didn't have the Sanskrit at the time. I had 3 Chinese versions and 1 Tibetan version, but of course I preferred the Tibetan version, which was same time as the later Chinese version, very similar, almost exactly the same, 7th century Chinese version and 8th century Tibetan version, very, very similar. And the early Chinese versions were very different because they thought some of the Sanskrit formalities, all the things were kind of tiresome. They wanted to make like a Taoist, more simple thing with a monosyllabic language. So he begins, pure are your eyes, broad and beautiful, like the petals of a blue lotus. Pure is your thought, having discovered the supreme transcendence of all trances. Immeasurable is the ocean of your virtue, the accumulation of your good deeds. You affirm the path of peace. O great ascetic, obeisance to you. But in those days I translated Shramana as ascetic, which is what people do. Nowadays I don't. Shramana means someone who's looking for an ashram. So my translation nowadays is, oh great vacationer. Because what's the sense of getting away from the household and the tuition payments and the salary and the job and the whatever, just a little fun on Saturday night to give me a break. So that's a vacation or not an ascetic, it's not self-declaration. Leader, bull of men, we we behold the revelation of your miracle, the superb and radiant fields of the Sugatas. That's a name for Buddha, Sugata, which means Sukham Gata. And Gata means to go, it's a past participle of to go, gone. And Sukha is bliss. So Sukham Gata means having gone to bliss. So blissful one, it means. I know one person who translated it as welfarer.
Welfarer?
He didn't translate for Republicans. So, and your extensive spiritual teachings that lead to immortality. So the superb and radiant fields of the Sugatas appear before us. And your extensive spiritual teachings that lead to immortality make themselves heard throughout the whole reach of space. O Dharma King, you rule with the Dharma, your supreme Dharma kingdom, and thereby bestow the treasure of the Dharma upon all living beings. Expert in the deep analysis of things, you teach their ultimate meaning. Sovereign Lord of Dharma, obeisance to you. And then he gives the teaching even. He knows it, this guy. His name is Ratnakara, which means jewel mine, the head of the yuppies. So he says, all these things arise dependently from causes, yet they are neither existent nor non-existent. Therein is neither ego, nor experiencer, nor doer, yet no action, good or evil, loses its effects. Such is your teaching. And what's first? That's really quite cool. When you see it, that's a verse of praise. They always say, when you praise and flatter gurus, it's boring to talk about how cute they are and how whatever, but you flatter them or praise them for the validity and the usefulness and the luminosity of their teaching. That's the only thing that's worthwhile that comes from them. Otherwise, they're just cute, but there's always a cuter one. There's a famous statement by one of the great Buddhist masters later, 1,000 years later, in India, where he says, "Oh, if you're going to worship a guru because they're clairvoyant, or they have divine eye, and they know they can see things at a distance, you should go study with the vultures." Who can see a carcass on the ground on its way. O Shakyamuni, conquering the powerful host of Mara, you found peace, immortality, and the happiness of the supreme enlightenment, which is not realized by any among the heterodox, though they arrest their feeling, thought, and mental processes. And here is putting down people who attain some kind of transcendence and remove themselves from life, and yet think they are enlightened, and that they don't do anything for anybody else. So, but anyway, it goes on like that. And there are a lot of verses. I'm not going to read them because I want to tell a story. But it's a great bunch of verses. So that's the young. I'll read the last thing. He said, "You nullify all signs in all things everywhere. You are not." That, by the way, is how to be here now. And when you're really here now, when you see something, it doesn't mean something else, because it's a complete universe in itself. It's like the super stoner who, for the first time, looks at a daffodil and disappears into the absolute, right? And they never saw one before, and they don't even know, of course, it's a daffodil. First they hallucinated it's a Pac-Man or something like that. That's really being here now. So you nullify all signs and all things everywhere. It's teaching us, in other words. You are not subject to any wish or anything at all. The miraculous power of the Buddhas is inconceivable. I bow to you who stand nowhere like infinite space. Sounds like your guru with his blankie, doesn't it? That's why he has the blankie. The blankie is his hook and anchor to sitting around with the likes of you. Right? Right? Am I right? And you occasionally, you take hold of that blankie and it's like a magic carpet. It is. So then when you pull the blanket away from you, want to go drown. Then the young Lichavi Ratnaka, that's his name, this was jewel mine, having celebrated the Buddha with these verses, further addressed him. Lord, these 500, actually, the word I was translating Lord in those days is Bhagavan. This is the first places where this word occurs that we know of. And yes, Bhagavan. It's a 500 BC, 600 BC Bhagavan. And Bhagavan means, Bhagavan means to possess, and Bhagavan means fortune. It means a share, a portion, or fortune. It also just does happen to mean vagina. But I won't get into that. It's
Get into that. That's so weird.
so Bhagavan, that's right. And my son objected a long time ago to me translating as Lord, my brilliant son, one of my brilliant sons. And he said, oh, you translated it like some feudal thing, Lord, like the landlord or something. Meanwhile, Bhagavan therefore means the fortunate one, oh, fortunate one.
Isn't Bhag blessedness?
What?
Bhag is blessedness.
Yeah, well, people translate blessed,
Yeah, blessed.
but I didn't like blessed in the 19th century. But it was clever at the time because people were such a bunch of fanatic Protestants, the conquering English in India, that when they read blessed, they subliminally kind of thought, oh, okay, God bless them, because who gives the blessing? God. Actually, that's the one who gives the blessing in the first place. So Bhagavan just means lucky one. It's the guy who got lucky. Don't laugh.
That's the
You
vagina.
get me in trouble. So the fortunate one, you should come up with something like that. Blessed one, okay. So Lord, anyway, I'm reading what I wrote here at that time. Lord, these 500 young Lichavis, Lichavi was the name of the tribe or the nation of which, because India was not one country in those days. There were 16 major city-state countries, which were all, each one rich as Germany. Like today, you have Bengal and Punjab, and UP is like 200 million or something, right? It's like huge, almost as big as America, just the Uttar Pradesh. So it was always like that, because of the wealth to support so many people. So Lord, these 500 young Lichavis are truly on their way already to unexcelled perfect enlightenment. And they have asked, however, today, what is the Bodhisattva's perfection and purification of the Buddha land? Please, Lord, explain to them the Bodhisattva's perfection and purification of the Buddha land, or Buddha field, I was saying in those days, Buddha Kshetra. So this is a concept that's very fabulous, meaning that when you become Buddhas, when you become fully enlightened, you achieve a sense of oneness of the universe, where you're one with all beings, and the whole beings are still there. They didn't disappear into your trance, or your samadhi or something. Your samadhi has incorporated them, and they're all there. And so therefore, you can't bear them to suffer, because you're feeling so groovy. And you see that they have the capacity to do so, especially the humans, and eventually the animals, and even the demons, and everyone will eventually be able to do that. You can see that because time, you can see through time. When you're really here now, you're everywhere in time, actually. You escape time, and so you can move everywhere in time, they say. I hope it's true. And so, therefore, when you become that, you change your whole world into an ideal world for the beings in it, is the idea. That's the concept of the Buddha land. Okay? Or Buddha, nowadays I translate it as a Buddha-verse instead of universe. A Buddha-verse. Because a universe, it turns into one thing around the person who perceives it, the one ego person. It's like egoverse. Whereas Buddhaverse, it turns into the ideal place for every being, is the ideal. So that's where I translate now. But these days I translated Buddha field, and then in the intervening decades, Buddha land, and now Buddhaverse. But anyone is okay. So you see, this means that the people, the interlocutors in this sutra, are asking the Buddha not about the path for themselves. They say they're already on their way on the path. They know about the preciousness of their human life opportunity with their human intelligence and their human sensitivity. They know that that's not to be wasted, just eating and drinking and whatever. And they're to evolve to this higher kind of life and greater life and more joyful, blissful, and loving life. They know that. So they're already on that. But they can't imagine, and nobody can, transforming the whole world. This is really important. I'm so happy that we put the Vimalakirti in the description, because we are now facing this year a changing of the whole land, and Greta Thunberg has called us to change the whole planet, actually. And it seems impossible to everybody. Let's face it. I mean, that's why they deny, and let's just make some more money. In the meantime, we'll all fail and we'll all go out, but we'll make more money, and then we'll buy a place in New Zealand to survive, like those billionaires do in California. So thinking they can survive in New Zealand. So my point is that that's their question: how to change the world itself. We can't understand it. So then the Buddha says, "Very good, young man. Your question to the Tathagata," which is another name for Buddha. Tathagata means one who has realized the ultimate, the absolute, of the Tathata, suchness. That means. So Tathagata. Like Ramdas, if he really was being here now, which I think he was finally, then he was a Tathagata, actually. Meaning he had gone to suchness. And the gone is a cognitive thing. The words for understanding in Sanskrit are words for motion. Because when you understand something new about the world or life, you go into a different world. Our English word is based on the authoritarian, backward nature of European cultures, where we stand under some indoctrination, and we obey, we're obedient, because we don't think we have the ability to understand the world. We're taught that we have to just worship the king and God, and the Pope, or the Prime Minister, So we understand. What are we standing under? Which dork are we understanding? Even Buddha said, I know everything, and I'm really happy, and you should be too. But unfortunately, I can't explain it to you. However, you can experience it yourself, because I did. And he was a spoiled brat prince, crown prince. And with a harem and and also a loving wife and a family later after the harem. He was a very happy guy, very capable. But he realized that wasn't enough. So he understood it all, and then he became less selfish, and he experienced it all, and he realized it was beyond explanation, actually. But that doesn't mean that explanation isn't useful, because he could explain ways in which you can go on a path where you can understand it, which you cannot just accept the formula and then you know it by understanding. You have to experience, right? That's so nice, I know everything, but don't listen to me. I think that's great. So, because you can understand. So then he goes on, he says, your question to the Tathagata about the perfection of the Buddha field is indeed good. Therefore, young man, listen well and remember, I will explain to you the perfection and purification of the Buddha field of the Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is someone who has realized that has awakened to the idea that they could understand everything, and then that would really make them happy, and then they could really make others happy, and they want to do that. And then they take a kind of vow that I'm going to do that, even if it may take me 100 lifetimes or 1,000,000 lifetimes. I will be such a being who will be just a complete agent of others' well-being. I will be such a being. And of course, I'll be super cool myself. It's not that they're going to be martyrs or something. So, and then he goes a long spiel, which is very beautiful, but I will not repeat. And every great thing, in other words, in your long evolutionary career of being a bodhisattva and becoming more and more wise and more compassionate and more capable and more competent and more artistic, to be able to help others see the beauty of the world and the glory of life and so forth. or a million lifetimes if necessary. You make a vow like that, and they do that, and every good thing they do becomes part of the land. So that eventually the Buddha field is a field of, where the land is made of generosity and ethicality and patience and kindness and concentration and creativity and wisdom and open-mindedness and so forth. The actual land is made of that, and so it's like perfect and totally pure. So when he finishes that spiel, his top dualistic disciple is Shariputra. So his name is Shariputra, who's very enlightened. He's quite an enlightened, holy person. He's considered a major person in the community and so forth. And even he's very open. He doesn't think anything. Buddha kind of sneaks up on him. He plays a guru trick on him. And he plants a thought in his mind.
In Sariputra's mind.
What?
In Sariputra's mind.
Yeah. No, Buddha plants a thought in Shariputra. Yeah, Shariputra's mind. So it says, thereupon magically influenced by the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra had this thought. If the Buddha verse is pure and perfect, only to the extent that the mind of the Bodhisattva is pure and perfect, then when this Shakyamuni Buddha was engaged in the career of the evolutionary career of the Bodhisattva, his mind must have been impure. Otherwise, how could this Buddha verse, the world he's in, India at that time, that's as far as he knew, appear to be so imperfect and impure and horrible? Like a bunch of dying people and starving people and wars and whatever, although it was actually the richest place in Eurasia, so it was not that bad. Not like nowadays.
Say that again.
What?
Say that little part again.
It was the richest place in Eurasia.
If the Bodhisattva...
Yeah, if the Bodhisattva's mind is the purity and perfection of the Bodhisattva's mind becoming a Buddha is the purity of the land, then he must have had an impure and imperfect mind, but he was a Bodhisattva. And he's not saying Buddha has one now, but maybe that implies that even Buddha has it now, because he's still here and the place still sucks. So, which is a logical thought. But Buddha makes him think he has attained kind of nirvanic threshold state, actually. Shariputra has. He has not attained the full nirvana where everyone is included, which is Buddha. But he has attained a kind of nirvana where he feels everything is okay as an individual. So then Buddha, knowing telepathically the thought of the Venerable Shariputra, he plants the thought within he knows it telepathically. Big deal. The guru tricks. You recognize the way your Buddha behaved. Right? So he says, what do you think, Shariputra? Is it because the sun and moon are impure that those blind from birth do not see them? Is there some imperfection with the sun and moon? What's the problem? That a blind person from birth never sees them? Oh, no, it is not so, says Shariputra. The fault lies with those blind from birth and not with the sun and moon. And the Buddha declared, in the same way, Shariputra, the fact that some living beings do not behold the splendid display of virtues of the Buddha-verse, of the Buddha, the Tathagata, is due to their own ignorance. It is not the fault of the Tathagata, the Buddha. Shariputra, the Buddha field of the Tathagata is pure and perfect, but you do not see it. Then the Brahma Shikin, that's God actually at the time, He's supposed to be the creator. The people in that culture at that time thought that. Buddha didn't necessarily, because he talked to the guy, and I'll tell that's another story, but where it's in another recorded, another sutra, his conversation with Brahma. But anyway, Brahma is like the top god, and he's present, because he likes to hear Buddha teach. And Brahma chimes in to Shariputra, he says, Shariputra, Reverend Shariputra, he respects Shariputra. He says, Reverend Shariputra, do not say that the Buddha verse of the Tathagata is impure. Reverend Shariputra, the Buddha verse of the Tathagata is perfect. I see the splendid expanse of the Buddha verse of the Lord Shakyamuni as equal to the splendor of, for example, the Paranimita Vaishavartin deities. And these are a particular heaven at the top of the desire realm, where the gods are so jaded with pleasures that they have no desire, so they're almost ready to go into the Brahma realms. They're on the verge of passing from the desire realm to the pure form realm, but they still stuck a little bit in desire, so they're voyeur heaven. In other words, they voyeuristically, they kibitz on the pleasures of the gods below them. That's the Indian concept, paranimita vaishavartam. who controls the emanations of others, pleasure emanations of others. That's it. So he mentioned, but I thought that was too complicated, so I just said the abodes of the highest desire realm deities. So then the Venerable Shariputra, he doesn't like to talk back to Buddha, but he talks back to God. So he said to the Brahma Shikin, as for me, O Brahma, I see this great earth with its highs and lows, its thorns, its precipices, its peaks, and its abysses, as if it were entirely filled with crap. That's what he says. And also filled with bad presidents and kings and Republicans and climate deniers and whatever. Right? That's how we do see the world, isn't it? Brahma Shikin replied, the fact that you see such a Buddha-verse as this, as if it were so imperfect, is a rare, sure sign that there are highs and lows in your mind, and that your positive thought in regard to the Buddha intuitive wisdom, is not perfect either. Reverend Shariputra, those whose minds are impartial toward all living beings, and whose positive thoughts toward the Buddha intuitive wisdom are pure, and see this Buddha field as perfect. Now this is the point, this is what it comes to at this moment. Thereupon, the lucky Lord, the blessed Lord, touched the ground of this billion-world galactic universe. You know, so that's, I don't know how to translate this, but I call billion-world galactic universe, because there are many other worlds than this one planet that they see the beings in and everything. So they feel like that, like Ram, who said there were all the Ramas in the other worlds. That's an Indian thing. That's right here in this text. When he puts his big toe down on the ground in a sort of ceremonious way, and suddenly it was transformed into a huge mass of precious jewels, a magnificent array of many hundreds of thousands of clusters of precious gems, until it resembled the universe of the Buddha Ratnavyuha. Ratnavyuha means jewel array. And that's a Buddha world of his, where your own body is made of jewel plasma. You know, like diamond and ruby and emerald, you know, like liquid, warm jewel plasma, you know, they're like a really exquisite, beautiful, but sensitive and live. So the universe of Ratnavyuha called Ananta Guna Ratnavyuha, the array of the jewels of infinite virtues or excellences. Everyone in the entire assembly was filled with wonder, each perceiving herself and himself seated on a throne of jeweled lotuses. Then the Buddha said to the Venerable Shariputra, Shariputra, do you see this splendor of the virtues of the Buddhaverse? And Shariputra replied, I see it, Lord. Here before me is a display of splendor, such as I never before heard of or beheld. Shariputra, this Buddha field is always thus perfect, but the Buddha makes it appear to be spoiled by many faults, in order to bring about the maturity of inferior living beings. For example, Shariputra, and he goes on, and we go on, too many references to explain. This is the point. In other words, although they do it in terms of everything is made of jewel, but what they mean is, instead of you seeing and me seeing, we all seeing everything is very imperfect. We only get to go for a New Year's retreat. We hit KD for an hour or two, and we scatter seeds around and Hanuman and everything, and Shiva and Shakti and whoever it is, and then we're back to the office, and then this and that, taking out the garbage, and so on. We have no time to practice, and so then we this and that, and then we get tired and have a beer and watch a commercial, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so we feel it's so imperfect. If we were living. If Guruji was here, I'd be really doing my practice. If Buddha was here, I'd be in Samadhi. If Dharma wasn't like over there in Dharamsala, I'd be really changed by sadhanas and so forth. And we always excuse this kind of thing because we're in this imperfect thing. So we know I'm just an imperfect person, like I can't really do much, right? We get like, right? So suddenly they were there now, they were in the Buddha world. They were the being in the perfect spot for themselves evolutionarily. Seated in jewel lotuses, in a Buddhaverse, like when you go to the Buddhaverse, you have male and female elements in every body. There's no male looking for a female, no female looking for a male. Even in the pure form realm, the Brahmakayika Deva means why it's called pure. Rupa Dhatu is because there's no gender differentiation. And You're having a date with yourself all day long, so you don't, you're not hung up ever. So you just whatever you do other stuff, and so you are there now. You're appreciating the perfection of the moment. You're free. You realize you're freedom. You feel blissful, wells up from within you. You feel love for all others. If your attention expands beyond your immediate field, and there's another who's having a freak out somewhere, you can't bear that because you see them as not needing that. And they're just putting themselves through it out of ignorance of their true situation, which is fine, because they're also here now, type of thing. So, in other words, Buddha showed in this doing this, that this is the perfect place for our evolution into becoming these like extraordinary, supernormal, highly enlightened beings. And don't settle and don't sell out enlightenment from the great continent of India for these people who act like, oh, enlightenment is just like being like you always were. That's not true. That's BS. And I don't mean Buddhist studies. A lot of people do that, because they're supposed to be leaders and gurus and whatever, you know what I mean? The people who pose themselves as gurus. And then they had a few extraordinary experiences in their life, and they did that. And then afterwards, it's a big come down. So then they say, oh yeah, it's just like that. Just don't worry about it. It's just, this is it. And there's famous Zen thing. First there are mountains and rivers. Then there are no mountains and no rivers. Oh, then again there are mountains and rivers. Oh, then there always were no rivers, and who cares? Why do I complain? And they say, but that's wrong. When you know that the mountain and river is illusory, because there's no mountains and rivers on the ultimate river, then the mountains and rivers are miracles. You're a mountain and a river, and you know that. It's very different, So don't sell it short. Don't sell your human opportunity of transforming everything around you in the world short, because some people themselves didn't get there, and then they act like that's there. Because it's their profession. They don't have a day job. Okay? So then the whole sutra, but then it's very interesting. So that's the first chapter, of the Vimalakirti. And that's not Vimalakirti. He's not even introduced there. He hasn't happened to be there because he's sick. He's okay. He's at home in his house. He's a wealthy person, like a banker. But he's also a minister, he's also a psychiatrist, he's also a merchant, he's everything. He does, they describe him as being like this really important citizen. And the other thing is he's a philosopher, and whenever he bumps into any Dharma person, he usually gives them a hard time. So they introduce him like that, and then he gives a little talk because he's sick, and he says, oh, this body is like, forget it. Actually, in that sense, he reminds me of Ramdas, I have to say. He's really... Ramdas showed a body like that. That's just like how Vimalakirti. That's interesting. I didn't think of that. He shows a body like that. He says, when the people come to visit him when he's sick, and they all come because he's such a key citizen. So out of his very skill in liberative art, Vimalakirti manifested himself as sick because he was supernormal. He didn't have to be sick, as they're saying, because he was a Siddha, this guy. To inquire after his health, the king, the officials, the lords, etc., they all came, and when they got there, he began a discourse from the actuality of the four main elements, that's earth, water, fire, and wind. He says, friends, this body is so impermanent, fragile, unworthy of confidence, and feeble. It is so insubstantial, perishable, short-lived, painful, filled with diseases and subject to changes. Thus, my friends, this body is only like a vessel of many sicknesses. Wise men do not rely on it. This body is like a bowl of foam unable to bear any pressure, like a water bubble not remaining very long, like a mirage born from the appetites of the passions, like the trunk of the plantain tree having no core, like a machine, a nexus of bones and tendons, like a magical illusion consisting of falsifications, like a dream being an unreal vision. It goes on like that. This body is ownerless. It's inert like the earth, selfless like water, lifeless like fire, impersonal like the wind. He goes on and on. He said, therefore, therefore you should be revulsed by such a body. You should despair of it and should arouse your admiration for the body of the Buddha. Phoenicia holds out hope. Friends, the body of the Buddha is the body of Dharma. And what does Dharma mean in this case? Actually, you know, this is amazing. The word Dharma, according to Patrick Olivelle, Professor Patrick Olivelle of the University of Texas, a Sri Lankan Christian who became one of the great Sanskritists of this generation, I guess mine, but it wasn't over with, more or less. But he translated many Vedas and Brahmanas and Aranyakas and the Upanishads, and he was really a famous and great translator. In his elder age, he translated a few Buddhist things. And he said that the word Dharma occurs only 17 times in the pre-Buddhist literature of India. And the word for sort of ultimate reality or the law of reality or something like that is Urta in the Vedas. Urta, R-T-A. You know, Urta, R as a vowel, Urta. And Dharma is not used except in the ritual texts in the context of the Rajasuya, the coronation of the king. Then the word Dharma is used. So it's not used there, and it's used when it's used there. It's only used in its pattern maintaining level of meanings. That's a sociological term. Pattern maintaining and pattern transcending. Words can be, there are two kinds of words. And, I mean, there are many ways of doing that, but that's one way. And pattern maintaining is where Dharma can be translated as law, custom, duty, religion, and even like the nature of a phenomenon. It can be used like that, a Dharma. It has about 5 or 6 meanings according to the Indian etymology people, the ancient ones. Those are, they're all pattern maintaining meanings, and that's the only 17 times it was used in those meanings for the king who has to uphold the law and the pattern of custom and duty. And when Arjuna is told, it is your Dharma as a Kshatriya warrior to fight, that's that kind of word Dharma is used in that way, in that context. From the time of the Buddhism, then, and then in later Puranas and Upanishads after that, the word Dharma still comes from the verb dir, to hold, but it has a pattern transcending meaning. And Dharma means the path, it means a teaching, something that you change when you learn. It means virtue. When you rise above whatever and become particularly excellent. And then in the very highest range, it means nirvana itself, it means reality, and the teaching about how to achieve reality. And so there the holding means that which holds us in freedom from suffering. And that's Sanatana Dharma. And then later in Indian culture, that becomes Sanatana Dharma, which arises in this mid-first millennium BCE period. Therefore, the use of the word in that way, not 10,000 years before. Before that, before there was the idea of moksha, in other words, in Indian culture, which was only the middle of that century, of that first millennium. There was no, in the aims of life, there was no kama, artha, and dharma, there was no moksha, no liberation. So the body of Dharma means, and when you're a Buddha, what is your body of Dharma? That means that's your body. Nirvana is your body. Just like Bob Turner goes like this. This is my body. 78. Have to pull my shoulders back up to slump, etc., etc. But there's no way to wave your hand and touch it because you are all of it. It's all reality. You feel that's your body. So each of you feel that everybody else is your body. So when they hurt, you don't like it. And you can't bear it. And that's compassion. That's true compassion. True compassion cannot come when you see another person suffering and you think, well, even if you have pity and you say, oh, I'm sorry they're suffering. But actually it's their suffering and you're a separate being and it doesn't affect you that deeply. If you relate to them, you love them, whatever, they're your family or something, or you identify with them, then it does a little bit. But you have to actually feel it to really react where it's intolerable to you. If you put your hand on a hot pot on the stove, and you don't have to, shall I be compassionate to my hand today? Shall I extend myself to remove my hand from this burning pot? I don't think you need to ask that. It's like, So then, why do you have a guy living across the street from you who's like hopeless, and you can't do anything for him, and yet you keep him across the street from you, and you do everything you can to get a guy to shape it. That really blew my mind, that story, because even he moved next to the guy. He must have met him when he was fresh out of his nirvana or something. And then so he became obsessed with that particular addictive mess of that guy. And that guy was like a channel doorway to all the messes that he would later encounter. Right? What do you think?
Yeah.
So that means your body is that. And and I think they don't really unpack this for you too much. This notion of nirmana kaya, body elimination. Because when your body is a body of reality, then that means you're available to everybody else's body and suffering. And you're open to all of their suffering. And you can't do anything but work for that. You don't go off into trance, whatever. But somehow the only reason, of course, you can do that is that your bliss state, let's say, and your perception of their bliss state is so strong, it overwhelms without neglecting or negating their suffering. But you can't just rush over and just, blast them with bliss on the other hand, because they're into their boundary. And they're just like French people smoking their gold ones. No, it's like the ones who attacked poor Mathieu Ricard. Non, j'aime ma souffrance, je ne vais pas laisser ma souffrance à les bouddhistes. No, I'm not going to give up my suffering to the Buddhists. Garbage, even boyard. I used to smoke something in the stage with boyard. It's a big fat like a spleef with no grass in it. Just tobacco. Very harsh like Moroccan tobacco. It's called boyard. I don't know if they still have that brand, but I used to smoke that. That's more. And drink like it. It's Calvados. Just imitating Brigitte. So when it's the body of the Buddha, it's the body of Dharma. That means the body is superb. Now, Sambhoga, the word Sambhoga. Sambhoga, Bhoga means, like Bhaga, Bhoga, it's in that field. Bhoga means to enjoy, to consume, to eat. Sambhoga is totally consumed. And Sambhoga in the Kama Sutra literature means orgasm. Orgasm, it means. But actually it's used for where your Dharma body, the form side of your Buddha body, is a body of bliss, therefore. Sambhoga, full enjoyment. Actually, one of my colleagues translated your full utility body. People translated some of us need therapists. So anyway, my point is, that's your body. It's a body that is so blissful that it can just explode into infinite embodiments, according to adapted to the infinite being's sufferings, to manifest to them the ideal thing that they need to encounter to have a doorway out of their suffering. I think Maharaj's blankie. I actually saw him and his blankie. I'm so unfortunate a person. I looked down over the bridge and I saw this guy with his blankie. And he looks just like him. Where did he go? Oh, I'm sorry, I offended him. I said he looked like Maharaji, and I said he didn't have a blanket. But I did, I saw the blanket. And you guys were like, oh, like the police. I saw such a guy looking at me like that, I remember that. And I wanted to go down there, but there's some complication. I had to haul some other hippie to the hospital in Menla in my Volkswagen. The one I kept. Or maybe I was scared I had to give him my Volkswagen. But you couldn't give your Volkswagen, you understand? It was in your passport in those days. If you didn't take it out of the country with you, the Indians did horrible things to you at the frontier when you tried to leave. Even in the airport, they miss your flight and they just go nuts. You have to pay 3 times the value of the car to that. So I was scared to lose We called it Nandi actually. The children, we called it Nandi, like Shiva's bull. You know? Buddhist style, we called it Nandi. We did. And actually, it's buried, it was for a while buried forgotten in my Woodstock house. But finally ran out of steam in the Woodstock house. I brought it back here.
You brought it back?
Yeah, from Genoa. I drove it to Genoa and put it on a boat. And then drove it, because it was filled, the boat, and it was filled with Sanskrit books. And there's metal chests, you know, the Indians sell you with a metal chest. And it was filled with them and put on a boat and came to it. And then eventually ran out and we planted it in the garden because we couldn't bear to give up Nandi. But finally then I had enough, like, okay, shut up, get out of here, and called the tow truck. And wrenched it out of the garden. It is born of intuitive wisdom. The body of a Buddha, of a Tathagata, is born of the stores of merit and wisdom. Merit comes from being kind and compassionate and generous and ethical. And wisdom comes from seeing, using analytic, critical insight to see through the superficial, illusory appearances of things and find their true reality. And even then see how that true reality allows them to be relational and illusory things with value, even though they're illusory. Not depart from them. It is born, non-duality means non-duality, right? It is born of morality, of meditation, of wisdom, of the liberations, and of the knowledge and vision of the liberations. It is born of love, compassion, joy, and impartiality. It is born of charity, discipline, and self-control. It is born of the path of the 10 virtues. It is born of patience and gentleness. It is born of the roots of virtue planted by solid efforts. It is born of the concentrations, the liberations, the meditations, and the absorptions. Oh, horrible. I never use that word now. Trances, I use. Absorptions. It's like really like what's that paper towel they sell you. Absorb. So horrible. Trances. It is born of learning, wisdom, and liberative art. It is born of the 37 accessories of enlightenment. It is born of mental quiescence and transcendental analysis. It is born of the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, and the 18 special Buddha qualities. It is born of all the transcendences. It is born from sciences and super knowledges. It is born of the abandonment of all evil qualities and of the collection of all good qualities. It is born of truth. It is born of reality. It is born of conscious awareness. Friends, the body of a Buddha is born of innumerable good works. Towards such a body you should turn your aspirations, and in order to eliminate the sicknesses of the passions of all, of the addicted passions of all living beings, you should conceive the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. So that's Vimalakirti. Then Vimalakirti is sick, right? So then Buddha tries to send some of his disciples, the top ones, Shariputra, Kashyapa, enlightened ones, and then all bodhisattvas, the next Buddha, etc., to go pay a visit on the sick Vimalakirti to cheer him up. And they all say, oh no, no, they say, no, I don't really feel like it today. I don't want to go see Vimalakirti today. And they say, why not? Why don't we go see him? He's a member of our community and he's sick, and we have a tradition, we pay a call on a sick person, cheer them up, that's how they do it. Oh well, the last time I met Vimalakirti, he was in, and they recount a story. And when they met Vimalakirti, and he gave them such a hard time. And actually they learned something, they admit. They really learned something. Like Shariputra was a big meditator, and when he meets Shariputra, he disturbs his meditation. Shariputra is meditating at the foot of a tree. And he says to Shariputra, this is not how you meditate at the foot of a tree. And Shariputra's like, what? And he said, Shariputra, you don't meditate anywhere. You never meditate at the foot of a tree unless neither body or mind appear anywhere in the triple universe. So in other words, first you have to shatter all your world pictures, and you have to completely dissolve them all. So you're not in a place doing some meditating. It's like Dogen, great first Satori in China, was where a fellow meditator fell asleep in China, and the master came and whacked him and woke him up and said, that's ridiculous, you should never fall asleep meditating. You have to cast off body and mind. And then Dogen had his first little satori. There's a story like that in Zen, very good story. So anyway, there's like 10 stories in here that are very famous in Buddha Because these are all like St. Peter and St. Paul. I mean, these are all the top people in the Buddhist, like history, and every one of them gets like a hard time, really.
Hassled to death.
What?
Hassled to death.
Yeah, well, he's always focused on shunyata karuna garbham, my favorite expression in Sanskrit. In Buddhism, is shunyata karuna garbham. And this word garba, this is the famous Buddha nature, but in that phrase, shunyata means voidness or emptiness, karuna means compassion, and garba means womb. So it means voidness with the womb of compassion. And therefore it gives the vision of the famous voidness. It's not like a blank space, like a nothingness. Although space is sometimes used as an analogy, but because it's empty, of solid object. But it doesn't mean it's like the voidness is a nurturing membrane, which is the ultimate stuff of the universe. So everything is made of folds and nurturing, sort of delicate membrane. And therefore it's sensitive, and therefore it's compassionate. It's willing to nurture anything that needs nurturing. The reality is that means. Okay, it's not inflicting on women in particular, but it's using the metaphor of that most creative element in life, where life comes from, the womb. Right? And actually there's a funny thing, I don't know what to do about it. I really don't, as a translator. This famous thing, Buddha nature? But does a dog have the Buddha nature? Like every macho samurai Zen guy, an American Rambo master Zen, like whatever, or meditator, or Tibetan great Rinpoche chasing wonderful enlightened person, they all have my Buddha nature, they're doing it. But the word nature, and even in Chinese it shows there's nature, and in Tibetan it's essence, ningbo. But the word is dharma, and it actually means womb. And can by extension be the fetus in the womb. But they somehow, I guess, in the militaristic Asian culture, they didn't want to go around saying to people, to macho guys, well, you guys have a Buddha womb too. They still want to say it, so I better not say it today. But that's a fact. It's a Buddha womb. The universe is. And so the Mahamudra, is where you see the wall, as if it was your nurturing membrane, You embrace, you're in love, you have orgasm with the floor, with the carpet, You don't go molest women, or men, you just, everything is in ecstatic embrace. That's what Mahamudra means. It doesn't mean that some Rinpoche chasing some poor female around in Vermont, really. So, my point is, some things, but anyway, I'll come back to Vimalakirti. We have another session, I hope, tomorrow or something, or maybe we don't. But anyway, this is the point. So Vimalakirti, therefore, poses this question to us. And in a way, Bhagavan Ramdas, or Baba Ramdas, Bhagavan, you call him Baba too? Yeah, Baba Ramdas. Baba Ramdas, Bhagavan Ramdas. You could say Bhagavan too, if he was in India, and you were wheeling him around there in India, he could be Bhagavan. Bhagavan. Right? Sounds like some kind of four-wheel thing. The Volkswagen was the Bhagavan. Oh, never mind. So the point is that we're all in a perfect place. And that's why Be Here Now was so amazing, because we intuitively feel that. Because people can go ahead as much as they like and say, I don't believe that crap about a spiritual life. I'm existentialist. Don't give me that. I'm going to just get out of here. Period. I know people who talk like that. I got over the years. And they can do it just as like, and intuitively they know they're going someplace. And even if they keep insisting they don't, they hedge their bets and they call for the rabbi or the priest or something at the last minute. Oh, yeah, I'm ready for MIT and just too, but rabbi comes just in case. They do. When they're really gurgling and toggling and choking for air. Because everybody knows that nature is a continuity. And the mind is part of nature. And we're not lacking minds. You know? The scientific community that insists there's no mind and everything can be reduced to the brain and to this and that. And they're like the Aboriginal, like shamans who have a world tree in the middle of their rituals. It is essential to the ritual. And they all cluster around the tree. And then over centuries, the tree decays into dust. So they still have it there, but they just turn their backs to it. And then it's still there as far as the ritual is concerned, although it's just nothing but dust. So they're like that. They turn their back on their own mind. Like they don't have it. So therefore, we know that we don't know how to direct our mind when it's not guided by the oar and the steering panel, whatever we call it, the tiller of our senses, and our fingers, and our ears, and eyes, and nose, and tongue, and skin, and boundaries, and we don't know, because we know in dreams, we don't know what's going to happen in a dream to us. And so therefore, we know that that any moment is the right moment to find out who and what we really are. And when we find our freedom and our bliss, it isn't like we found something else and went somewhere else. It's in us now. It's actually our health is our bliss. If we have great tragedy and we give in to grief and we make grief our yoga, then we'll get cancer probably, sooner or later. My mother did. She was from a lineage, they never had that kind of thing. But she got all grief-stricken when my father died. And, she tried to live it up, and she was a happy person in one way, but she had a deep, she slept with like the bust of my father and the pillow next to her. And occasionally she had a boyfriend who shocked me as a son, and she put it under the bed. But then she'd bring it out later when the boyfriend would go away. So then she got cancer herself. So that's because then the person is suppressing their inner bliss, which is their health. Their vitality. That's your health. That's your life force. We all have it. Same as any Buddha. So, okay. So then when we find the body of a Tathagata, it doesn't mean we go out, annihilate our body, and put on a Tathagata, so Buddha suit. Although that would be a good business. We thought, when we were naively thinking before we were given Menla, by some really nice and kind people, lock, stock, and barrel, given it. So we couldn't have water. It's for Tibet House, the Tibetan Refugees Cultural Center. We were given it to facilitate Buddhist medicine, Buddhist healing. Make the medicine Buddhas feel, create the medicine Buddhas feel. But before that, we thought, well, we could maybe make a place like a center, but in order to attract all the American Buddhists, since every single one of them wants to be a guru, they don't want to be students, they want to be gurus. So we thought we would have like a cone job, surgical cone job, where you could put a stack up on your head, like not just a hair, but an actual skull protrusion. Maybe some of you have a special expensive job where they implant lights. With a light it will come up. And then extra earlobe, you have an earlobe lengthening. You could have a little urna implantation, a little white tuft of hair here. I mean, we had all plans like that in the past. We gave them all up, so couldn't manage. But the point is, you don't have to do that. Everyone has that. But that doesn't mean that you could just hang out and just do nothing and that it'll pop out, because the accretion of all of our prakrtis, our instinctual, habitual patterns, unconscious as well as conscious, are so strong. To sort of unravel them takes quite an effort. But we have the ability to do it. Human beings. We have the critical intelligence, and we have the ability to concentrate. And we have that. So I don't want to talk, I did talk about two, but I wanted to get to the goddess chapter. There's some great chapters about the inconceivable liberation and about how to console an invalid. You console them by talking about emptiness and compassion and so forth. Really, it's quite nice. Because finally somebody goes to see him, which is Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of perfect wisdom. And he says, oh, he doesn't give me a hard time. I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind. Oh, you have, oh, good. So Manjushri says, I'll go see Vimalakirti. He doesn't, I can't really, he's too eloquent for me, and he'll probably give me trouble, but I enjoy it, and we'll go have a great discussion. And then everybody else who didn't go say, oh, I want to go with you, come with me. They all go. And I'm hiding behind Manjushri, and then they're going to have this fabulous conversation. When they reached China, all the Taoists loved it. They told me, because they had this thing about deep, one-liners and conversations, they're called Qing Tang, light conversation, they have this thing. So anyway, there's a bunch of great chapters like that, and then the one on the inconceivable liberation that's about the supernormal powers that you get when you get confronted with the task of spreading bliss to all these suffering beings. And then you use magic as well. But that's a beautiful thing. But then this goddess comes out in the house of Vimalakirti, and she starts scattering flowers. And she has a conversation with they have a beautiful, I think I'll say that, we have another session, right? I can have like 40 minutes, another session. No, it's too much, right? It's going to be too long. So I don't think we should. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
Yes.
You want me to go more? Go
Those of
ahead.
you who want him to go ahead, raise your hand. Those of you who don't want him to go ahead,
Oh.
raise your hand.
By the way, and also for anybody who needs to pee, when I give classes, I always declare a free pee zone, which doesn't mean bring in a bedpan. It means just get up and pee and come back. So we don't stop, because when people stop, then you yak and drink coffee, and then that's, what I mean, it's a waste of time. So anybody can get up and go. Okay, so then he has this amazing thing. So I was going to read about love, and which is first in this goddess chapter. It begins where Manjushri says, good sir, he says to Vimalakirti, he says, good sir, how should a bodhisattva regard all living beings? And then Vimalakirti replies with all these analogies of illusion. Like a ball of foam, he had some really fun ones, like the erection of a eunuch, like this tortoise fur hair coat, tortoise hair fur coat. Funny thing, it's quite funny sometimes. Like dream visions seen after waking, like the passions, the addictive passions of one free of conceptualizations, like a fire burning without fuel, like an incarnation of one who has attained ultimate liberation, all this kind of thing. So he involuntary reincarnation. So anyway, so it sort of like doesn't get into a false reification of a living being as a thing in itself, in other words. That's emptiness. In other words, sees beings as empty, so it sees through them, but then takes them totally seriously as illusions and sees their changeability, in fact, therefore can really have effective compassion. So they say the compassion that doesn't see any being, because it doesn't, but then other people say, well, that couldn't be compassion because you don't see anything. But it doesn't mean that. It doesn't see any other being because it feels what the other being feels. So it doesn't need to see another being. If the compassion sees another suffering being as separate from yourself, it never will be powerful enough to really be committed to liberating that being from there, helping that being become liberated from suffering. Even though ultimately they have to liberate themselves. But you can do a lot of stuff to help. So but anyway, he poses the question by talking about illusion. So then precisely thus Manjushri does the Bodhisattva who realizes ultimate selflessness consider all beings. Manjushri then asks further, noble sir, if a Bodhisattva considers all living beings in such a way as like illusory, not illusions, but like illusions, he thinks, how does he generate the great love toward them, the wish for them to be happy, the great love, universal love, Bahar, Maitri. And then Manjushri, as he answers, Manjushri, when a Bodhisattva considers all living beings in this way, he thinks, just as I have realized this liberating Dharma, this liberating reality, so should I teach it to living beings. Thereby, he generates the love that is truly a refuge for all living beings. It's like when you said the other day, before you met Maharaji, when you first met Ram Das, you knew there was something there you wanted, you said last night. And you felt, in other words, Maharaji's presence through Ram Das. Although Ram Das was not yet identical with Maharaji, but maybe he, after receiving the blessings of his stroke, which he considered came from Maharaji, because he was aware of his own egotism.
Actually, he didn't think the stroke came from
What?
him. The
He
stroke,
didn't? He used to
No.
say that.
yeah, but he corrected it later.
Really?
What he believed was that the stroke was his physical karma, but Maharaji gave him the strength to
Oh, good. Well,
squeeze
that's a
grace
nice,
out of it.
that's a nice correction,
Yeah.
in the sense that, okay, he was
actually-
attributing too much,
Yeah,
like manipulative power to Maharaji.
yeah, and also.
And he corrected that. That's more saintly.
Yes, it is. Well, that's what, it came from
Thank you.
Siddhima. It came from Siddhima.
Completely.
Ramdas used to say that, and then he went to meet Siddhima, and she said, Ramdas, Maharaji did not give you the stroke.
Who said that?
Siddhima.
Siddhiman.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And she said, Ramdas did not give you the stroke, he would never do that. But he did give you the strength to
That's
overcome
beautiful.
this.
Thank you, Siddhiman.
Yes, thank you, Siddhima.
Thank you. You know, well, but in a way, even his mistake, showing his total acceptance,
Absolutely.
had a good thing about it.
No, absolutely.
It was rather than think somebody did it, because what weakens us all when we have misfortune is when we point the finger at the universe,
Yeah.
whatever, whether we hate God for it, if we believe in that,
Yeah.
whether we hate other
And
people.
Even when he was misunderstanding the cause of the stroke,
Yeah,
and thought that Maharaji gave it to him, he also took it as grace. He didn't take it as a negative thing.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's the other thing. But
So even there, I
Even
mean,
there.
I don't fault him for what he did, the mistake that he
no fault.
said, but maybe it was good that it was corrected, because these other people would get the wrong idea of some sort of weird manipulation by such a group, which would never
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
Agreed, we never bring pain upon it. Although, in a way, sometimes there is such a thing as surgical pain.
Yes.
A good surgeon is going to fix your valve, your aorta or something if it goes wrong, and they take a saw and they saw your chest.
Yeah.
And therefore, a bad one will do it just to make money when you don't need it.
Yeah.
But a good one will save your life and do it when you do need it. So there's always a difference. So anyway, he says, so thereby he generates the love that is truly a refuge for all living beings. The love that is peaceful because free of grasping. The love, love is basically defined as the will to the happiness of the beloved. So if you love yourself, you have a will to your own happiness. And if you don't sell happiness short, you realize that the only greatest happiness is the Mahamudra, the great seal, the happiness of a Buddha. The happiness that is simultaneously the happiness of all life. And you don't go for any lesser one. The love that is not feverish, because free of addictive passions. The love that accords with reality, because it is equanimous in all three times. The love that is without conflict, because free of the violence of the addictive passions. The love that is non-dual, because it is involved neither with the external nor with the internal. The love that is imperturbable, because totally ultimate. Thereby he generates the love that is firm, its high resolve unbreakable like a diamond. The love that is pure, purified in its intrinsic nature. The love that is even, its aspirations being equal. The saint's love that has eliminated its enemy. The bodhisattva's love that continuously develops living beings. The Buddha's love that understands reality. The Buddha's love that causes living beings to awaken from their sleep. The love that is spontaneous because it is fully enlightened spontaneously. The love that is enlightenment because it is unity of experience, that is to say bliss. The love that has no presumption because it has eliminated attachment and aversion. The love that is great compassion because it infuses the universal vehicle with radiance. The love that is never exhausted because it acknowledges voidness, freedom, and selflessness. The love that is giving because it bestows the gift of the Dharma free of the tight fist of a bad teacher. The love that is, the teacher who keeps some knowledge to themselves so they can make more money. The love that is morality because it improves immoral living beings. The love that is tolerance because it protects both self and others. The love that is effort because it takes responsibility for all living beings. The love that is contemplation because it refrains from indulgence in tastes. The love that is wisdom because it causes attainment at the proper time. The love that is liberative art because it shows the way everywhere. The love that is without formality because it is pure in motivation. The love that is without deviation because it arises from decisive motivation. The love that is high resolve because it is without passions. The love that is without deceit because it is not artificial. The love that is happiness because it introduces living beings to the happiness of the Buddha. Such Manjushri is the great love of the Bodhisattva. So Manjushri says, what is the great compassion of the Bodhisattva? Vimalakirti says, it is the giving of all accumulated roots of virtue to all living beings. So every good virtuous thing that you do, the merit that you stack up, you give it away, right away. Or as Tathagata used to say, you invest it in the bank of the happiness of all beings. Manjushri, what is the great joy of the Bodhisattva? He says, it is to be, Vimalakirti says, it is to be joyful and without regret in giving. Manjushri said, what is the great equanimity of the Bodhisattva? Vimalakirti says, it is what benefits both self and others. Manjushri says, to what should one resort when terrified by fear of life? Manjushri, Vimalakirti says, Manjushri, a Bodhisattva who is terrified by fear of life should resort to the magnanimity of the Buddha. And Manjushri says, where should he or she who wishes to resort to the magnanimity of the Buddha take her stand? Vimalakirti says, she should stand in equanimity toward all living beings. Manjushri says, where should he or she who wishes to stand in equanimity toward all living beings take her stand? She should live for the liberation and freedom of all living beings. Manjushri, what should he who wishes to liberate all living beings do? Vimalakirti, he should liberate them from their addictive passions. Manjushri, how should she who wishes to eliminate addictive passions apply herself? Vimalakirti, she should apply herself appropriately. Manjushri, how should she apply herself to apply herself appropriately? Vimalakirti, she should apply herself to productionlessness and to destructionlessness. Manjushri, what is not produced and what is not destroyed? Vimalakirti, evil is not produced and good is not destroyed. Manjushri, what is the root of good and evil? Vimalakirti, materiality is the root of good and evil. Manjushri, what is the root of materiality? Vimalakirti, selfish desire is the root of materiality. Manjushri, what is the root of selfish desire and attachment? Vimalakirti, unreal mental construction is the root of selfish desire. Manjushri, what is the root of unreal mental construction? Vimalakirti, the false concept is the root. Manjushri, what is the root of the false concept? Vimalakirti, baselessness. Manjushri, what is the root of baselessness? Vimalakirti, Manjushri, when something is baseless, how can it have any root? Therefore, all things stand on the root which is baseless. Thereupon a certain goddess who lived in that house, having heard the teaching of the Dharma of the great heroic Bodhisattvas, and being delighted, pleased, and overjoyed, manifested herself in a material body, and showered the great spiritual heroes, the Bodhisattvas, and the great disciples with heavenly flowers. When the flowers fell on the bodies of the Bodhisattvas, they fell off on the floor. But when they fell on the bodies of the great disciples, they stuck to them and did not fall. The great disciples became disturbed and shook the flowers, and even tried to use their magical powers, but still the flowers would not shake off. Then the goddess said to the Venerable Shariputra, Reverend Shariputra, why are you shaking the flowers? And Shariputra replied, Goddess, these flowers are not proper for a monk, religious person, and so we're trying to shake them off. And the goddess said, do not say that, Reverend Shariputra. Why? The flowers are proper indeed. Why? Such flowers neither have conceptual discrimination nor non-discrimination. But the elder Shariputra has both conceptual thought and discrimination. Reverend Shariputra, impropriety for one who has renounced the world for the discipline of the rightly taught Dharma consists of conceptual thoughts and discriminations. Yet the venerable elders are full of such thoughts. One who is without such thoughts is always proper. Reverend Shariputra, see how these flowers do not stick to the bodies of these great spiritual heroes, the Bodhisattvas? This is because they have eliminated conceptual thoughts of discrimination. It goes on like that, and then And then finally, Shariputra kind of, he realizes he's lost it, you know. So then he changes the subject. It's a man trick. And he changes his, Venerable Shariputra just goes, Goddess, how long have you been here in the house? She says, I have been here just as long as the Venerable Elder has been in liberation, in Nirvana. At that, the Elder Shariputra felt silent. Oh, no, sorry. Shariputra then said, then have you been in this house for quite a while? The goddess said, has the elder been in Nirvana for quite a while? At that, the Elder Shariputra felt silent. The goddess continued, unrelenting, the Me Too goddess. She said, Elder, you are foremost of the wise. Why do you not speak? Now when it is your turn to answer, you do not answer the question. Shariputra says, since Nirvana is inexpressible, goddess, I do not know what to say. The goddess says, all the syllables pronounced by the elder have the nature of Nirvana. Why? Nirvana is neither internal nor external, nor can it be apprehended apart from them. Likewise, syllables, including the syllables of chanting, are neither internal nor external, nor can they be apprehended anywhere else. Therefore, Reverend Shariputra, do not point to liberation by abandoning speech. Why? The holy nirvana liberation is the equality of all things, the non-duality of nirvana and chanting. So then Shariputra said, Goddess, he fights back. Is not nirvanic liberation the freedom from desire, hatred, and folly? And Goddess said, liberation is freedom from desire, hatred, and folly. That is the teaching for the excessively proud. But those free of pride are taught that the very nature of desire, hatred, and folly is itself liberated nirvana. Excellent, excellent, Goddess. He then says, because she's teaching non-duality, right? And he's dualistic, but anyway, he says excellent. Then he changes the subject. He says, pray, what have you attained? What have you realized that you have such eloquence? And the goddess says, I have attained nothing, Reverend Shariputra. I have no realization. Therefore, I have such eloquence. Whoever thinks, quote, I have attained, I have realized, unquote, is overly proud in the discipline of the well-taught Dharma. Then he again changes the subject. Shariputra, Goddess, you belong to the disciple vehicle, to the solitary sage vehicle, or to the universal vehicle? You know, are you a dualistic Buddhist, in other words, who thinks nirvana is elsewhere, or are you a non-dualist, universal vehicle person, Mahayana? And she says, I belong to the disciple vehicle when I teach it to those who need it. I belong to the solitary sage vehicle when I teach the 12 links of dependent origination, never mind, that's a complicated thing, to those who need them. And since I never abandoned the great compassion, I belong to the great vehicle, as all need that teaching to attain ultimate liberation. So she goes on like that, and then she has this wonderful 8 strange and wonderful things manifest themselves in the house of Vimalakirti, which I have to say, I'm not going to read it because it takes too long, but these are what we hope Menla will be happen in Menla. We want the 8 strange and wonderful things to be here at Menla, but we don't have a good enough sound system yet. So then he again changes the subject after she gives this amazing thing about the magicality of the sort of Doctor Who TARDIS, which is Vimalakirti's house, his mansion, the Menla house. So then he says, Goddess, you're so enlightened and eloquent. What prevents you from transforming yourself out of your female state? Well, he's the patriarchal chauvinist. And she said, although I have thought my female state for these whole 12 years that I've been here in this house, I have not yet found it, she said. Reverend Shariputra, if a magician were to incarnate a woman by magic, would you ask her, what prevents you from transforming yourself out of your female state? Shariputra says, no, such a woman would not really exist. So what would there be to transform? Goddess said, just so, Reverend Shariputra, all things do not really exist. They exist illusory, but they don't really exist. In other words, they do not really exist. Now, would you think what prevents one whose nature is that of a magical incarnation from transforming herself out of her female state? End quote. And thereupon the goddess employed her magical power. This is the greatest. To cause the elder Shariputra to appear in her body, and to cause herself to appear in his body. Then the goddess transformed into Shariputra, said to Shariputra, transformed into a goddess, Reverend Shariputra, what prevents you from transforming yourself into a female state? And Shariputra, transformed into the goddess, replied, I no longer appear in the form of a male. My body is changed to the body of a woman. I do not know what to transform. I tried to get Gloria Steinem to publish this in this magazine, but she refused. Well, she didn't like religion, because a cathedral, a cathedral, the nave and the altar and the whole thing, the triangle navel thing there. It's like impersonating a womb, to invalidate females. So she told me, she informed me, which was an interesting insight, I think. I like that. And then the priest is there in his purple scarlet robe, and he's a little he's like impersonating and disempowering women. And I can understand that. So she refused to put it in there, but I thought it was so far out. 2,000 years ago. So then she continues. She says, if the elder could again change out of the female state, then all women could also change out of their female states. All women appear in the form of women in just the same way as the elder appears in the form of a woman. While they are not women in reality, they appear in the form of women. With this in mind, the Buddha said, in all things there is neither man nor woman. Then the goddess released her magical power, and each returned to his and her ordinary form. She then said to him, Reverend Shariputra, what have you done with your female form? He says, I neither made it nor did I change it. Just so, all things are neither made nor changed, and that they are not made and not changed, that is the teaching of the Buddha. Then again, he changes the subject. Goddess, where will you be born when you transmigrate after death? And he goes, there you go, something like that. Anyway, I love that. I really love that. I thought you would like it. Yeah. 2,000 years old. This is the majesty of ancient India. Yeah. Really. It is. And this is so another, before the Muslims showed up, it had a run of another 1,000 years after this book. Or after the book, actually, but the event, 1,500 years. Because according to the Mahayana people, this happened in Buddha's life. It's not, the Westerners say, oh no, they invented that later and they lied, and because they're Indians and they lie, the English word. And so, the Buddha never knew about Mahayana. Buddha was just like Socrates, barefoot, eating curry, curry eating Socrates, living on a cow dung floor, like whatever. But the British thought that. But actually, this is from Buddha's time. And it's really amazing. So the whole, anyway, that's a great thing about male and female. And then, the bigger burden of the book is, of the teaching is, that now is our moment to transform ourselves, to discover our true nature, to realize the illusoriness of what we think, how we limit our sense of being. That we just think we're just such and such, and we'll always be. You know how people say, the supposed wise man in the group will say it. People never change. Some guy who's like 40 pounds overweight, chewing on a cigar, waiting for his heart attack, and eating his steak with potatoes and like cream cheese and like garnished with like, I don't know what. People never change. And that passes for wisdom. So asinine. And the guy's like about to collapse and die and be reborn like as a cow in a field. And then people never change, cows never change. Really. So everything is changing all the time. And then, oh yeah, and then the fact that, and Shakyamuni is still here. Buddha, he's responsible for us. He had the experience 2,500 years under that tree, that he was all of us. So he can't give us up. So he emanates. When the Karmapa says, or even when Maharaji himself points to his own picture and says, that's Buddha. Yeah. When he says that, that's Shakyamuni talking. Because, if Ramdas met some guy who was a cone head with weird things and lights and webbed fingers and like strange looking kind of character, he might freak out. He might turn him into the American Psychological Association. An alien, like E.T. No, he meant like it's a humble, simple Indian guy, he was Mr. Western who comes in and smokes a wagon and there's gives him some tabs of acid and he kind of just, he was obviously already stoned enough. And then that caught him, and and so that was the perfect thing to appear to him, to be seemingly, not powerful, in other words. It's like Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg tells those bastard kind of criminals, your house is burning, you should act like it's an emergency. But then they see this broken body, oh, she's autistic, right? But they can't avoid hearing the message. They can't pretend. It's like the Republican guys in the committees, they said, the process is horrible. Oh, it's terrible. I want Adam Schiff's phone records. They were doing that because they couldn't deny it. That's their way of denying the message. But the messenger is so humble and simple. And the message has the total power of reality. And they can't be evaded, And they can continue to work hard to deny it, but that puts them in a terrible stress to keep denying it. So then they come out with a thing like, oh, yeah, it's not just the shareholders or the stakeholders, everybody's a stakeholder, they say. So everybody needs to make money from our selling more carbon-producing oil so that the oil will drown later, but they'll have money when they drown. I'm actually turning to that. So it's really beautiful. Actually, then later, in this sutra, in case I don't get back to it, Shariputra gets worried because there's no lunch in this empty house. And he thinks, there's some elderly monks here with me, and they can't eat till tomorrow morning if they miss the noon lunch. And so, where's the lunch? I don't see cooks, waiters, served in this wealthy house. I don't see any food. There's no furniture. Even if you're getting to the furniture for when everybody showed up. It's like a TARDIS house. So they looked at me and said, Shariputra, did you come here for the Dharma? For the conversation between me and Manjushri, or did you come here for lunch? And he gives him a whole thing. Then he sends a gopher. He creates a magical gopher. Golden one. A golden bodhisattva gopher. And he says, now you go to beyond as many universes as there are grains of sand in 62 Ganges riverbeds to the northeast, to the land Sarvagandha Sugandha, perfumed by all incenses, and ask the Buddha there, whose name is Sugandha Kuta, which means like a mansion of incenses or perfumes, and ask him for a little leftover from his meal, and bring it back. So, okay, and just he goes, the speed of thought, and arrives there, and then he says, Vimalakirti from the Sahara world, the barely tolerable world of Shakyamuni, which he calls this world tolerable, barely tolerable, Sahara. And he says he wants a little leftover lunch to feed his assembly. Oh, great, here. So he gives him a few grains of rice. And then the Bodhisattva leaves and goes, zips back to the Vimalakirti house, and then Vimalakirti feeds thousands of people. So it's one of those kind of things. And then the Bodhisattvas, who are really bored because their bodies are made of incense, the trees are incense, the ground is incense, it's a pure land, like what they call it. And all the Buddha does there, he doesn't teach a word, he just radiates the perfume, and people sniff, and they go into samadhi. Different perfume, different samadhi, and they endlessly do samadhi. So they're super bored after having done that for a few, 1,000 years and things. So then they say, oh, Buddha, that must be far out from Shakyamuni's Buddhaverse, sending out for takeout all the way over here. Can we go back and see them and visit with them? And then Buddha says, sure, you guys go, you have teleportation power, you have high samadhis. your high bodhisattvas, you can go. But the only thing is, when you get there, you have to change your body and make it more coarse, and don't smell like that, because if they smell you, they'll all go nuts in that world. They're not used to such a beautiful smell. They'll go completely wacky. So then they arrive, and then when they get here, they're going to, ooh, what? It's like Greta Thunberg, you know, she said on the Late Show, on the comedy show, he asked her, how do you like New York? And she said, well, it's smelly. Sweden is very smelly. They have horrible smelly fish. The ocean apparently was not smelly. Anyway, she said, smelly. You know? And so then they're there. And then after a while, you know, then they tease everybody and go on, this other stuff happened. And then they challenge you and they said, well, how come, what's wrong with Shakyamuni? It's such a crappy Buddhaverse. The infrastructure here really sucks. What's wrong with it? And he said, oh no, this is better infrastructure than you guys. Look at you, you're so bored you came here for lunch. And all the way, you know, and here we have suffering. We have not just developing samadhi and wisdom, we can develop compassion faster. And the body of Buddhahood comes from compassion, not just from wisdom. Wisdom, of course, is essential, but here we have something to struggle with. And so it's like a justification of the difficulties that we face, you know, the challenges that we face. There's a whole sutra. And he shows that. Anyway. Okay, sorry. Okay. Talk too much.
Thank you. See you later.
Any questions? Okay.
There.
Thank you, Hanuman.
You want to take some questions? I don't care, we can hang out.
What?
We have some questions, you want to ask some questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
What
If
is
you
the
wanna go,
name
you can
again
go.
of the text?
Anybody can ask any question. Everyone's good at it. Yes.
Hello. Could you please mention again the name of this book, of this,
The book.
Oh,
the name?
yeah, this is called, well, my translation
Yes.
is called The Holy Teaching of Vimalakirti in the printed form. There's a slightly revised edition, which I gave to a website, but it was one Buddhist Lama created with a bunch of Chinese and Western people, called the 84,000 Project.
Yeah.
And you can download it for PDF for free. And I think they might have called it the Noble Teaching of Vimalakirti, because I changed holy to noble, the word Arya. And I had a reason at the time for making it holy, and then now I made it noble instead. And but you can just ask for the Vimalakirti Sutra on the line if you want to get it for free. The printed version, it's a little changed. Like here I was translating the concept of upaya as liberative technique. In those days, this was 30 or 40 years ago. And I translated now as liberative art. I prefer art to technique, because art includes technique, and it has also the idea of beauty and so forth more, you know, than technology. And a few little things like that are changed. Otherwise, it's basically the same thing. Because since then, the Japanese bought from the Chinese robbers, they bought a Sanskrit text that had been, that was lost, you know, in India and everywhere. But they stole it from Tibet, and then they finally found the pages in some truckload or something, and then they sold it to the Japanese. And the Japanese published it. And it turns out that this term is just exactly the same as Sanskrit. Because Tibetan is very accurate on Sanskrit.
Yeah.
They make a big fuss about it. They created the language, the written language, precisely to translate the Indian knowledge. As the Dalai Lama says, not the Buddhist knowledge, the Indian knowledge. No, he does.
Yeah.
He just gave a lecture at Goa University, where he created a chair for a visiting professor, which they're now trying to brainwash me to go there to go 2 weeks a year to teach there, and which I don't know if I want to do, but I might. And he said, this Nalanda University knowledge is not Buddhist knowledge, it is your own Indian knowledge. And in those days, they didn't call it Buddhist, what they called it was inner scientist. The Buddhist was called an inner insider. And what it meant was inside the inner science. Adhyatma Vidya, of the Indian sciences, there was inner science, healing science, engineering science, medical science, etc. Linguistic science, they had all these sciences. Actually, the Europeans invented linguistics only upon discovery of Sanskrit. because they never pulled together their grammars in such a way as to develop the generative linguistics until they discovered that the Indians had done so 2,500 years ago.
Wow.
Panini. Yeah. There was another question. No? Yes?
That website called the 84,000.
Yeah, 84,000, I'm sorry, the text test. You can download it as a PDF. Okay? For free. I gave it to them. Because these people had never paid me a penny in royalty, but I gave it to them to do, but I don't know. It's a useless conversation. Sold more copies than all the other books that the press printed combined. They said.
Wow.
And when I gave the royalty away to the nonprofit that commissioned it, and when that went out of business, so I discovered that they then, the rights were given to me, and they should have paid me for about 25 years.
Wow.
20 years. But I didn't, that's okay, I didn't do anything about it. But I gave it away free to the website. Yes, what's the question?
Bob,
Yes.
one thing that Ramdas was really into was near-death experiences
Yes.
and all the literature around
Yes.
that and how benign all of the anecdotes are about after death,
Yes.
what people experience. And how does that jive with the Tibetan model in your mind of all of these wrathful deities and scary, treacherous experiences and
Oh, there's
dangers
beautiful
that one
peaceful
might
ones.
have?
Who's talking? I can't say, oh, you're talking, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's Noah.
It's me.
Oh, you sneaked over there and asked a question. Very good. Yes, well, no, the wrathful things are only part of this. The wrathful ones don't come on, they're not wrathful. I hate that word. People translate that, but they're not full of wrath. They're fierce. They're showing the form of fierce for a reason, and I'll explain. Death is something we all do, and we've all done innumerable times. And the great Indian yogis and yoginis learned to do death and rehearse it and master it and come back to their regular bodies. Some of them would leave their regular bodies. Some of them would leave the body in what's called a cataleptic trance without normal respiration, just sort of distributing the molecules, cells and things in some way where they just were infused with energy, so they didn't need to be breathing and take it in through the alveoli and pump it through the blood and heart and everything. So they just held their body in what's called held it in clear light. While they left the body, they went into like a matrix dream state, and they accomplished various methods of accumulating merit, benefiting beings, visiting other universes, amazing sort of things, going to other continents, doing things in a subtle body, like a matrix, like Neo. That's why I love the Matrix. I don't care about all the shooting and the weird, like crawling on the ceiling with machine guns blazing. That's to attract the action film people like me and get them to learn about living in a virtual reality. Amazing lesson, Dharma lesson to people, subliminal Dharma lesson. And so they do the great Siddharthas learn to do that. Not just Buddhists, and not just Hindu, and not just Vaishnava, and not just China, all of them learn to do that. I mean, the advanced ones, super advanced ones. And then they described the stages of death, and then they described how to learn to master it, to do it consciously. Because the point of doing that consciously is to be able to be in charge of the rebirth process. So, and in order to really be in charge of the rebirth process, you have to be a kind of person who is not driven or compelled to be reborn just by pure attraction, by pure greed or lust or thinking you'll be safe in a body instead of sort of loose in the universe. And so, and they left a very high, like neuroscience, about how a being is conceived, how the nervous system evolves, how to be in a sort of semi-cataleptic trance state and leave it and come back to it. Oh, it's amazing. It's totally incredible. And it's scientific incredible. It's not mystical incredible. Mystical means, well, the mystical can have the meaning of just hidden from some people who would freak out. and that it is mystical in that sense. But mystical in the sense of it's mysterious and no one understands these processes is not correct. It's scientific, but it's super subtle science. And so Ramdas, it's not just near-death. We modern people began to get into it because of near-death experiences. People pronounced clinically dead who are either revived and or naturally do, and then talk about what happened. Some of them talk about the experience they had while their brain was flatlined, heart was not beating, and they should be having brain damage and not be alive. And then they come back and I know one lady, Embraced by the Light lady, Betty Eady, she was in a body bag in an icebox. Somehow pounded on the door, pounded on the door on the morgue. According to the story, and I believe the story. That she was having a chat with Jesus, and then she misinterpreted some things that Jesus said, unfortunately as well. But she had a nice visit, otherwise. And there's many stories like that. So those are post-death experiences. But the great yogis in Asia, of the Indian inner science tradition, they learned completely about this. And not only that, but those siddhas who know that when someone else dies, they can help them. Because they can go into that subtle plane voluntarily and find the super subtle, the soul body, because the soul always has a body. The soul, the super subtle soul is the super subtle mind continuum, and a mind always has a body. There's no meaning to use the word mind unless it has a body. And the super soul, super subtle body is made of pure, like it's a matrix body, like pure energy. And at first it will be seen to resemble the previous body that one had. And then if one is headed in a certain direction because of affinities established in life by behaving in a certain way, then it will begin to look like where it's going. They say over time in that between state. And such beings the siddhas can go and collect that person and redirect how they go. And what these two paintings on my left and right, this is a painting of the peaceful, what are called the peaceful deities of the first week after the original clear light experience, for sometimes 3 or 4 days. In the first week or first 5 days after that, you have to meet the peaceful deities. Then you meet them all together. Then you meet the scientist deities. And the Indian scientists are weird. I had one Tibetan on the working with each other, and said, "Oh, you can't call these Vidyagaras scientists." I says, "Why not?" He says, "Well, because they're wearing dhotis and they have long hair and top knots and beards and they're like sadhus. And they're funky, wild, and they don't have a white coat and a little mirror thing on their head." So there's some scientists who dress like that. Anyway, astronauts don't. Never mind. So they are scientists, and then the reason you might meet the fierce ones in subsequent days, if you haven't had the help of this kind of apparition. They might then, same being, same loving, infinite number of one and many Buddhas, male and female, and both male and female, and they appear to you in that peaceful way. And then when if you still haven't found a little freedom and you're still just driven by impulse, unconscious impulse, then these fierce ones will appear to you to tangle with your deeper impulses. And your more hostilities and your fears, your thanatos. Freud, in the unconscious, he discovered eros and thanatos. Erotic energy, polymorphous, perverse lust energy, as he called it, and then death and aggression energy. And these are ones dealing with your own death and aggression energy. They will appear to you like that. And if you are a yogi or a yogini like a siddha, you will learn yourself to manifest in such an embodiment. Remember Neo in the Matrix and even Agent Smith in the Matrix, at some stage they learned to be able to multiply their bodies. Remember when they had a big fight and they all multiplied their bodies into many? Well, the yogis and yoginis who learned that kind of virtual body thing, which they learned by developing such a stable way of visualizing themselves with some sort of supernormal body embodiment, that they can, when they're in a dreamlike state of very, very subtle energy, they can crystallize that like a hologram. They can make a hologram of a certain shape and exact type of body with fingernails and with whatever, flaming hair, or whatever it is, they can completely do that. And so it takes a long preparation to be able to do that. You just can't snap do that. You're like just like in a dream, you can't. Normally in a dream, we don't even see our bodies, right? We're just sort of a point of awareness in a dream, right? So that's what that's about. It's not, there's no fear, there's no wrathful being out there chasing everybody around. We have some kind of fierce, aggressive, killer mind in our unconscious, according to Mr. Freud, correctly. And the Buddhists and the Hindu psychologists knew that themselves a long time ago, especially the tantric ones, the non-dual ones. The more dualistic ones didn't really plunge into the unconscious. That's why their nirvana is not the universal one, because they have kind of a conscious level nirvana, coarse reality nirvana. They have a kind of feeling of release, and they have it. They couldn't really deal with the idea of being everyone and the whole funky nature of the world. But the advanced ones, the higher ones, they go and they find in themselves also the unconscious, and then that's when these other exceptional forms are cultivated and developed to confront that. It's not like there's somebody flying around who's a fierce deity. There are some fierce spirits who protect people, like Hanuman, like fierce. He's a fierce monkey when he's fierce, and he's pretty jolly, I think, when he's jolly, right? He's fierce when he's dealing with Ravana and the demons. Hanuman has a happy home life, I'm sure. What is Mrs. Hanuman's name?
Well, he's not married, that's what happened. He can watch as much TV as he wants.
I don't know.
On that note, we will go to dinner.
Thank you, everybody.
Any of the volunteers who are here on work study, if you guys could check in with us over here, we're going to reset the room for Kirtan. I wouldn't leave anything valuable here, but if you want to mark your seat, please do. We're just going to straighten up the cushions a little bit. You won't mess with anything.
It took a while. There were certain things he said that seemed correct. But I have to explore it a little bit. There's some things were confusing.
It's just like...
You didn't need to know about it, is that what you're saying? Sometimes it depends on the reader. So much depends on the reader.
I don't like to say, wow, I don't want to hear that because it's what the person does.
That's all he can offer you, so what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You just take it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't live my life like this. So, you know, my first astrologer.
I was going to share that joke.
You?
I dare you. With all the New York thing, like I thought it was a very good an astrologer. It's actually another opportunity like that. So it actually felt like it. Yeah, right. And like the first time she read for me with her friends, it's always nice.
It's all right.
That's okay.
Set my alarm for 2:30.
Oh, you know, I was going to call you. I said, I think he's sleeping. Like, I think he just went down.
Literally, I popped my eyes open.
Yeah.
And
There was
it's
something.
2:57, and I was like, Did,
He's never late, so it's like, I don't know what.
I'm still like,
Sometimes you just
hit the wall.
I mean, you're doing qigong, you're getting up early to do something. These are like things that you do every day.
I'm gonna leave my cup here. You can sit there, and that's
So excited.
That's a beautiful idea.
I know. I talked to her after.
I have a question to you, and you can tell me you don't know how to answer it. Somebody told me that Katie may be getting a small form of Alzheimer's. Are you sure for that bullshit? That's what I thought. Okay.
His father was
It's not him, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Some stupid rumors going around.
I don't think so.
Nah. I know he's forgetting stuff, but like I said, I saw him in New York and he was getting pissed off that he was forgetting stuff, but that's normal old age stuff, you know.
Like, it's talking about wine and things like that, but I don't think there's
Right.
no.
If there's anything, you know, just promise you'll tell me what you need.
Sometime between those two. High priest, and a couple of those professors like